All right, we'll hear first from Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chairman Duncan and Ranking Member Napolitano, for the opportunity to testify today. We're here today to discuss the necessity for Congress to develop and prioritize a program to finance nationally vital transportation projects where costs can't be borne by one or two states alone. An example of such critical infrastructure projects is the Brent Spence Bridge, which, as you can see from our first handout, is a vital interstate structure on the critical north-south I-75 corridor that crosses the Ohio River between our districts. As you can see from the second handout, 1/3 of the population of the United States lives within 275 miles of this corridor. The Brent Spence Bridge carries more than 3% of our gross domestic product across the Ohio River annually. Replacement of this bridge is critical to America's economy. As you begin to develop core elements of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization, we submitted the new process by which nationally vital transportation projects can be addressed and funded should be developed for the economic well-being of the nation as a whole. We must develop a rational process whereby critical infrastructure projects will be objectively identified and funded based on merit. The 2011 authorization presents an opportunity to fill that need. Despite our best efforts during the previous transportation authorization bills, Congress has not established a sufficient mechanism for funding critical infrastructure projects where costs are so high they can't be funded by one or more states. For example, the Brent Spence Bridge project will ultimately cost between $2 and $3 billion to complete, a burden which Kentucky and Ohio can't shoulder alone. It would take a generation or more to fund this one project under current Highway Trust Fund allocations. The Brent Spence Bridge enables more than $400 billion of commerce to travel from origin to destination annually. With interstate truck traffic projected to grow by 10% by 2030, the bridge in its current state will gridlock a vital national corridor, causing lost income, wasted fuel, and reduced employment because we can't efficiently deliver goods to customers. However, Ohio and Kentucky would have to dedicate their entire highway transportation budgets to the exclusion of everything else in order to fund the Brent Spence Bridge project. This is fiscally unrealistic and would be unreasonable given the benefits of the project that flow to the nation, not just two states. Major transportation bottlenecks cause thousands of hours of delay and have a negative impact on individual travelers, commuters, families, truckers, shippers, and receivers, particularly when the routes they travel are hostage to underfunded critical infrastructure nodes of national significance. The Woodrow Wilson Bridge between Maryland and Virginia, just southeast of downtown Washington, D.C., is traveled daily by some in the room here. In 1993, 200,000 vehicles crossed that bridge every day. The Wilson Bridge carries Interstate 95 and 495 across the Potomac River. The bridge supports a transportation corridor of national significance connecting the southeastern and northeastern United States. At the time, the U.S. Department of Transportation estimated that the value of the freight trucked across this bridge was equivalent to 1.3% of the entire gross domestic product of the United States, less than half that of the Brent Spence Bridge mentioned earlier. By the mid-1990s, the bridge was carrying 250% of the traffic volume for which it was designed. The bridge only had 3 lanes with 5 highway lanes worth of traffic trying to squeeze through. The bridge should become a bottleneck with national significance, causing tens of thousands of hours of delay to American travelers and commerce. Neither Maryland nor Virginia could assume the $2.5 billion cost of this project, which was several times the annual statewide infrastructure budgets for both states. Additionally, there was no federal program to fund projects that impact the nation as a whole. If Congress had not prioritized funding for the Wilson Bridge, funding that paid for the majority of the cost of the project, the bridge may have come to closure with economic impacts felt across the eastern seaboard. Congress helped resolve the funding issue, and the Wilson Bridge project was completed. However, resolution was cobbled together through exception, not by a cohesive decision-making and prioritization process like the one we're advocating for today. The 2011 authorization must include a mechanism for dealing with critical infrastructure projects like the Wilson Bridge that will hasten economic recovery and put Americans back to work. As we've noted, a current example of a project impacting the nation as a whole was the Brent Spence Bridge. Not only a vital conduit of goods and people across the Ohio River, the bridge also connects Canada to Florida via I-75, as well as Ohio to the western United States via I-71, and feeds traffic and freight to Chicago via I-74 and all the way to Alabama via I-65. The bridge affects commerce in over 60 congressional districts across the central United States. Completed in 1963, it was designed to carry 80,000 vehicles today, and it will soon have to accommodate nearly 200,000 vehicles despite being functionally obsolete. It's illustrative of projects over $400 billion in freight crossing the Ohio River for the American economy, more than 3% of our gross domestic product. It's a critical infrastructure project for the United States and will create tens of thousands of jobs. I urge my colleagues to ensure the 2011 Transportation Authorization has a program for providing a funding mechanism for critical infrastructure. Finally, I'd like to express my tremendous appreciation to my colleagues Steve Chabot and Gene Schmidt for their help and partnership through the years as we hope to see this project forward to benefit our nation. With that, I thank you for your consideration and yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.